Hey everyone, we are about to kick the workshops back off, but I just wanted to remind everybody to stay tuned today as long as you can during the workshops today, during the talks tomorrow. We have some fun stuff planned. We have some giveaways coming up, and there'll be different ways to win, whether it's some trivia, so make sure you kind of do some research on your CakePHP knowledge, but we will be heading back in just a few moments. Next up, we're going to have Jose Lorenzo, and he's got a good workshop planned for us. If you were with us last year in Japan, you know that we have 3 of our workshop hosts back with us, and we are super excited. So, Jose, whenever you are ready.
Cool. Hope you can hear me fine. Sorry about my voice. I have a stuffy nose today. Not COVID, thanks to God, but still not feeling quite well. Anyway, let's start today. I'll share my screen. Let me know if you can see this on the chat. Is this possible to remove, hide? Yes. Okay, so with Jorge, we created database schema, and we implemented some user stuff, some simple linking of the data. So I'll be talking mostly about the ORM, how we can do queries, how we can import data, how we can do it efficiently, and to show the trade-offs of each of the options. So we have a schema. I'll log into PSQL. I have started my application from scratch. So if I try to see the tables, there's nothing. So the first thing I want to show is that in the Docker compose file, I made some changes to Jorge's file. I added this for my convenience. So I repeated these variables so that when I do Docker compose PSQL, I could just log in without providing any password. That's just for my convenience. And the second change I made was to also mount the application as a volume in Postgres. That's just because I created a file here in the CSVs folder. I have created user CSV and file CSV. So let's imagine that you got this from marketing department. Like, let's kick off this company for real. Here is a list of 1 million users, and here's all the files they want to load to the database in one go. So if we try to look at the CSV files, for example, the users, we see that there are plenty. If we count the lines on that, it's 1 million users. And for the files, it's 2 million files. Okay, so there's plenty of data. It's not like we can load it super quickly just in memory. So this is going to be the challenge we have for today. So I said before that I had added a volume to Postgres so that I could just load the schema in the folder. I think I'm in here. So there is a Cakefest SQL. So I'm going to load that file. Cakefest. Is that here? Oh yeah, it's in the / applications. So application, Cakefest SQL, loaded. And if I look at the schema, whoop. There you go. So I have everything here. One change that I made to Jorge's file Well, I think you have it in the master branch. I saw some talk about this column, the JSON-B. That's just for a quick example that I want to make about how to use custom operators in the ORM and custom types. So the database is empty. I think we only have one user. Since I'm not looking at the chat, I'm not sure how to do that right now. I'm not sure if you can see correctly. Let me just see here, chat. Okay, nothing for me. If you cannot read my screen, let me know and I'll make the font bigger. Cool, so I only have one user. I think I only have one group as well, or no groups. Select star from groups. There's one group and one user. There are no files. There are no tags. Oh, there's one. Okay, so what is the structure of the files I need to load? So the first one, let's look again at, let me make this smaller because it's not important. This is when I'm running Docker Compose in this here. So I can make it bigger. So the structure of my CSV users is that I have the first name, the last name, the email, and with that, I think that's enough. They're gonna have a fixed password just for simplicity of the task, but of course you could, in theory, also have some logic to send an email and make them set their first password. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and create a command. So docker compose exec php batch. So now I'm in the shell of the PHP container. Here is my application, and I'm gonna run, first I'm gonna run Composer because this is the first install. I should have done this before because I'm not sure how long it's gonna take. But in any case, oh, I had done it before, fantastic. So I'm gonna do bin cake bake a command, and the command requires a name for the command. So a command is a topic that Mark Story will later explain in more details. But I'm just going to create one for making this a simpler task for me. So bake command load users. So it's asking me if I want to overwrite. Oh, actually I do want to overwrite. It's because I should be in master, not in my branch. There you go. Sure. So we start from scratch, and I can go in the source console command, source command, load users command. I have this new file. I'm not going to go into details of how this works. That's going to be for another workshop. I'm just going to say that this command can be executed with bin cake load users. Okay, it doesn't do anything currently, but now I can say to the parser of the command argument that I have a file requirement required true. Okay, if I try to do this, it's going to say file argument is missing, which is exactly what I want. I can also look at the help and it's telling me that file is required. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is to get the file and read it. So the file, let's call it just CSV, is arguments, get argument file. And we can print it, IO info, with quotes, I guess. You are about to load the CSV file. Let's run it again. Load user CSV, user CSV, and it get, you're about to load the CSV file. We're making some progress. Okay, so how would you go about loading a file with 1,000,000 entries? So the typical way that you can do that is you can iterate the lines of a file and do an action at a time. Let's try to do that. So one of the simpler ways of loading a CSV file in PHP is to do users equals new SPL file object of CSV. Okay, so now I have a file that can read, a file object that can read the lines, and do while line equals users fget CSV. We can print a line, for example, this, IO out, let's say the line 0. I'm gonna load it again, and I should see a stream of names. Okay, that was easy. So I need to create a record, right? So the way we do that is with, remember that Jorge baked a full project, and now we have in source, model, table, we have a few table classes. We're going to use the users table, this one here, to load the records. So we can do that by doing users table, is this load model users. I'm gonna play nice with the autocomplete and tell that this is a app model table, users table, users table. So I can get the auto completion and everyone's happy. Everyone's super happy about auto completion. I see that was one of the most popular questions today. Okay, so I need to create a record. So a single user is users table, and we do new entity. And here I do, let's see what's the definition of a user. Is an ID, first name, last name, email, and password. So let's try to do first name is line, that's the first row of the CSV. The last name is the second row. The email is the third row. Password, I'm not gonna deal with this problem right now, so I'm just gonna set a fixed password. And we need think the rest is fine. It's given. Okay, so the task suite should be simple now. Now we do users table, save or fail user. Cool. And let's just play nice here and add some progress. Not this, IO info, saving user. Some space. Saving user, line 0. Oh, well, line, what is the email? 2. It's complaining about single quotes. So I try to load. Oh, I had this out here. While it's loading, it seems fast. If I do a select count, remember it's a million users, so I'm not sure how much time this is gonna take. Select count star from users. We can see, well, it's 3,000 now. Every time I query, it's about 100 or 200 users. At this pace, it's gonna take a while to load a million. So I'll abort. This is not working as I expected. Probably that would be the cheaper way to finish my workshop. Just wait for this and say like, we're done, guys. But no, let's do it better. So I'm gonna truncate the table to start again. Truncate table users, restart identity. There you go. Now we have no users. Okay, so how can we make this better? So I'm accepting suggestions. Don't be shy. I see one question in the channel about what environment I'm using. I'm using Vim. Save many, that's one of the suggestions. Let's see what happens with save many. So now I need a way to save many. So I cannot like gather a million users as objects and then save many because that's not gonna work, I can tell you, mostly because it's very probable that the memory will just blow up to the gigabytes or to something unmanageable. And also the save many will take a long time to just loop each of the records and save one by one. But there is a good idea in using save many because it's a single transaction. So if I make less transactions, it is true that it's probably going to take a lot less time. So I have this while here. Let's make this into a function that I can load in chunks. So let's make these lines equals. Someone's writing something. Okay, someone say that to save 1,000 records at once, maybe. Let's try that. So the lines is function. This function use the users, which is the CSV file. Let me take this code here and put it here. Okay. Bunch of warnings, sorry about the noise. This is not important right now, so I'm just gonna delete it. Well, just keep it here. Okay, so for each line, the only thing I want to do is yield the line. So that's gonna make it lazy, meaning I'm not gonna blow the memory when I load all of the lines. I'm gonna execute this function. So I'm just gonna grab this function in parentheses, okay? And after grabbing it in parentheses, I'll execute the function immediately. Okay, now that I have done that, I can decorate this with the collection function. And now I have a collection that yields the line one by one lazily, meaning it's not gonna blow the entire memory. Okay. Now I can use the idea from the chat of loading every 1,000 records. So now I have the lines. This is a collection. And what I can do in the line is that I can map function and I will return I need to use user stable. Okay. Here it says that symbol lines is declared but not used. That's very true. Let me just get rid of that. There you go. Okay, so far what I've done is I've done nothing. I just rewrote the while into something that it looks more complex, but that is gonna let me chunk into thousands. So now for each line, I'm creating a new entity. And then for each line, instead of doing something, I'm gonna chunk in thousands. And then for each chunk, I can do something. Like here, I also need to use user stable. And I can do user stable save many chunk. So the each function also gets like the number of the chunk. I can use that I and say IO, which I need to import IO info loading chunk I. Semicolon. There you go. Format is complaining about this. Awesome. So all this contortion was so that I could use chunk in thousands. I'm not gonna go and be so crazy about the thousand. I'm just gonna save tens and see how it goes. Okay. I load again. Ah, it looks good. So every time I see this, it is loading. Looks faster than before, at least. Let's see if the idea of 1,000 works. So I'm gonna truncate again. And now that I know that the tens work, let's try thousands. So fingers crossed. 0, 1,000. All right, yeah. A 3. I'm not sure about you, but it looks to me that each chunk is getting slower as we go by. Right? Yeah, definitely. So I already did this experiment. I know that was going to be okay. You should be able to hear me now. Seems like I got no battery on my headset. Sorry about that, but we're back in business. So as I was telling you, the chunks will just be getting slower and slower and slower as we get to the million. I don't know the reason for that, but this is a perfect example to highlight that there are limits to the ORM. So while save many can work fantastically for thousands, up to like I could save 10,000 users in basically no time and I would be happy, and this code would be sufficient. If we got more, then we need to go some levels deeper in the stack to get more of our hardware. So what's going on here is that save many does so much work. It fires callbacks, it does validation, it checks validation rules, it does some other validation, it keeps in memory the entities in case the saving fails. So it does a lot of things for you, but things that in this very specific case we don't need. We have a file that is quite simple and we just want to save it. Perhaps we want to do some simple transformations, but it's not like we need the full power of converting things to an entity and using the ORM. The thing can be worse actually if you have behaviors, because each behavior will run a callback for each row, and well, you know that the more logic you have, the slower it can get. If you absolutely need those behaviors to run or that logic to run, that there's no escaping that. So you will need to suffer the save many getting slower, but then you can actually create many of these execute process. You can call load users many times and do something like instead of here map, you can do take. Let's say that each process would take 10,000 from an offset. So the first offset would be 0, the second offset would be 10,000, oops, sorry, would be 10,001. So this could be a parameter that you pass to the shell, and then you can fire many of them in parallel to consume the file faster than you can do in a single core. But actually, that's not needed. A million users is not that many users, especially when you have a file as small as this, and it's also my excuse to show that you can go lower than the ORM. Just as a small note, the new entity can be done or can be made faster. I didn't benchmark this, but I saw that there was some improvement. You can tell a new entity that you are 100% sure that all these rows are new and not present in the database. What was the other? So we have entity. Let me go to, well, cannot remember all the options right now in new entity. There's mark new, and I think they are documented, a lot of them, not here. No. Oh yeah, the other was use
setters false. So you know that entities, so the thing that you create here in model entity user, you can have setters. So you can have, for example, protected function set email and run some logic for setting the email. Whenever the email is set, you do something additional. But if you don't have those, or you don't want them to be called because it's not important, then you can use setters. That makes things faster. And for maximum performance in new entity, you can also do mark clean true, meaning that the entity will suffer no other changes from here. So there's no need to check if properties will be changed in the future. You save it as they are. So it's like you freeze the array and just copy it to the entity. That's the fastest you can get with this. We can try it. Probably it's not going to be noticeable. I think I benchmarked it and it was perhaps a few seconds faster. This is a second way of extracting more performance out of this. I'm going to stop. You know, it's slow. It's faster than running line by line, though. So this is version 1. This is the slow version. So let's call it slow. And we can copy it. Just copy everything. And execute. Let's make another, which is faster. So how can we do faster than this? So instead of creating entities, we can just return the arrays. We can chunk 1,000, but instead of loading with this, we're going to use a connection. So we go one level deeper and just use, instead of the ORM, the database connection. That would be user stable get connection. Okay, so I can pass the connection here too. All right. So the goal here is to create an insert query that bypasses all the logic in the ORM. And gladly that's super easy. So insert connection, new query, insert. I have an insert query. What are the parameters of insert? We get the columns and some types. So both are, one of them is required, the other is not. So columns is easy. You have two options. One is to get the array columns of the first in the chunk, but I don't like that option. The second option is that you can use the user stable, get schema, columns. But that also means that I need to pass two other columns that were set by the ORM before. So before we had created and modified being set by the ORM. Since it's not a lot of work, like I can do that myself, then I'll just do that myself. So I'm doing that because I'm saying I'm going to save all the columns. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm not going to do that because that also means that I need to save the ID. So simpler, and probably visually more readable is I'm just gonna repeat last name, email, and password. And the second argument is an array of types. The array of types is extremely important to pass because it helps the database system convert strings to, or numbers that you pass as numbers, but they convert it to string if it's the correct type, or vice versa, JSON if you pass JSON, and so on. In this particular case, so far, we're gonna see that this will crash in a minute. This will not be important, but I'm gonna pass it anyway so you can see how it can help. So again, users table, get schema, type map. So here I'm passing the map of all types that belong to the users table. So now I can use insert. So I have only told that I'm going to insert into that table and those columns where I need to pass some values. So the way that values work is that you pass the array of data, but if you need multiple inserts, as it says here, multiple inserts can be performed by calling values more than one time. That's kind of inconvenient though, but not the end of the world. I'm just gonna do what the documentation says. So for each row, for each chunk as row, insert values row. So this doesn't actually go to the database and insert immediately. It's just buffering in a single insert command that I will do statement equals insert execute. Okay, and the statement, this is some price I need to pay for going lower level. I need to close the cursor myself. And I can put here that I'm loading this chunk and I don't need the save menu. Okay, let's first see that it works with tens and then we try with more. I'm not sure if I have users already in the database. No, okay. So let's load. Boom. Remember that I told you I was going to explode? That's because it's telling me, I'm not sure if it's blowing up because of the reason I thought. Insert into first name. Let me see if there's an error here. I remember going through this error and I wanted to show how to debug it, but now I don't remember what it was. So this here is that it says values 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That should work. Okay, well, this is an oddball. It's not what I was expecting the error to be. I was expecting an error, but not this one in particular. So I'm going to fix it. Table name is missing in the SQL. Ah, fantastic. Thank you so much. So insert. So that's a note to take about this should be an exception and not an error like that. Thank you. Insert into. I need to tell it what table. Users table. Get table. There you go. But I'm gonna run it again, and I should see now the actual issue. Okay, so it's telling me that the column created should contain a value. Okay, so that's easy. I create it. I also know that's going to blow because of modified. New datetime. And same for modified. Awesome. It should work now, but I want it to fail. Null value in column. Did I save? Ah, of course, I'm not telling that I'm going to insert this. So create it and modify it. There you go. Whoa, it's much faster now. And I'm only saving tens. What I want to do now is I'm going to make it fail again so you understand the importance of the type map and all the work that CakePHP does for you in the background. So I'm going to just pass an empty array there and watch it crash. And it says that datetime cannot be converted to string. And that's because a database doesn't understand about datetimes, like PHP datetimes. It needs to be converted to something. And as you know, but if you don't, I'm going to demonstrate. A datetime cannot be converted to string. Like if you have an A equals new date time, right? If I wanted to convert it to string, so echo A, that's an error. So that's why it's actually failing. PHP doesn't know how to convert a datetime to string, and the PHP doesn't understand, and the database doesn't understand how to make a PHP value into something usable. Again, the solution is to use the type map. The type map is an array of classes that map, for example, the created column to a special class that knows how to convert from PHP to the database and vice versa, which is one of the most powerful features in CakePHP. You can create your own custom types, for example, a JSON type, an UUID type, a geolocation type, whatever, my email type with your custom logic for it. Anyways, we know that tens are quite fast. How about 1,000? Let me truncate again and load the thing. Wow, that's much better. If I select, I can see that I'm at 62,000 already, 84. That's going to take no time. So I'm just going to let it finish as I answer some questions. So Edward is asking, is closed cursor needed in MySQL MariaDB as well? I think so. It's always a good idea to release the resources. I think that frees up some memory, and depending on the type of cursor that your system is implementing, if you don't close it, you may get into errors afterwards, and errors are extremely difficult to debug, as I found out at some point. Someone asked as well, if you have access to the database, would you import directly? Yes. In this particular case, I would also just copy the file as a CSV directly in the database. The thing is that I can also create custom logic for mapping columns and creating new data, which is going to be my next example after the users load. So in the case that there are no transformations, or you cannot make the transformations directly to the CSV file, then I would 100% recommend not doing this in PHP, but I'll tell you about that error in a minute. Not do this in PHP, but directly in the database using copy CSV. In Postgres is the copy command. You can actually copy a CSV directly. But this is an amazing excuse to teach you how to use collections, lazy collections, and the inner guts of the ORM, as you may see. Cool. So I loaded 1 million users. There was an error before, which is annoying. I don't remember exactly how fgetCSV works. According to the documentation, the last line is false, but it's not. So the fix here, the lazy fix, because I don't understand exactly what it's doing, is that if empty line 0, so if it's not a valid array, then just break the loop. That is a fix for that. So if I select the number of users here, I have 1,000,001. Probably the last user is the error. We can see that. Select star from users. No, I was hoping to see the bad user as the first one. Order by ID, descending, limit 1. Yeah, there was an error in the row. So we inserted an empty row. Cool. Okay, so the next challenge is to load the files. The files is a much difficult file. So CSV files has 2 million rows. At least we know how to make things fast. Don't I have it? Oh, let's not here. Less CSV files. So the structure of files CSV is that it has the group ID. Let's first investigate how files look like. It has group ID, name, file type, the path, so metadata in JSON created and modified. So this is the group ID. This is the name of a file, or the pretty name. This is the file type, the path, the metadata, and a tag. It just has one tag. The tag I made it. This is basically just books. It's I generated a CSV of random book names and made it into fictitious files, and the tag is the author of a book. It's actually not the corresponding book, but just a random author. Question is collection a function, a collection function a part of Cake? Yes, it is. It is a Cake class. Okay, so let's load the files, which is gonna be a significantly more challenging thing mostly because we have a tag. So it's not just saving the file. There's some JSON here, which is gonna be interesting. But mostly it's gonna be difficult because we need to save tags in a structure that is denormalized. That is normalized. So we have the tags table. So tags have to be unique. There's nothing preventing tags from not being unique right now, but I will add it. We have a tagged table where we need to save the relationship, but we only have tags in a flat structure. That's gonna be interesting, but not impossible. Again, let's start with the same thing that we did before. I'm gonna do bin cake bake command load files. Cool. So now I have load files here. I'm going to split here so I can copy, load users. I'm gonna copy the body of this function so I can reuse the logic because it's quite similar. Okay, copy it, paste. Okay. I also need the parser here. So parser add argument file required true. If there are any questions, also let me know. So we load the file. You're about to load that file. So this is actually files. The users table is not going to be users table anymore. It's going to be files table. Actually, let me rename everything that looks like rename users table to files table table globally. There you go. And the users also just anything that looks like users with a dollar, make it into files globally. Okay. So this is a similar challenge. We just need to map the actual columns. Files. So the first one is the group ID. The second one is the name. The third one is the type. Fourth is the path, which is line 3. There's a question if there is PCTNL fork available somewhere in collection. Nope. Collection is only for in-memory data, so I'm not sure you can fork and keep it that way. Iterators are kind of picky about their pointers, so I don't think it would play really nicely with fork. My recommendation for forking is to use the take function, so you can slice parts of the collection and consume it in different processes. So I continue. Path is the third, metadata. Copy this. Metadata is the fourth. Created and modified. Fantastic. I'm not going to be loading thousands yet. This is quite similar. So let's just do group ID, type, path, metadata, created and modified. Also using this. And so I'm going to introduce a difference now. So instead of doing for each with the values here, because that annoys me to no end that I have to reiterate something that was already done in the chunk function. So I'm going to use a lower level function called class. So class allows me to get the values expression of the insert, and the values expression of the insert has a function called set values. And now we can pass the entire chunk to that. That's actually faster. Let's try that. So bin cake load files up, load files CSV file CSV. Okay. So it's telling me that column group ID of relation users. Am I saving users? That makes no sense. Yes, it makes sense because here it needs to be files. Again. Okay, saving. Let's stop here. Select start from files. And there is a big problem, which is that the metadata is not encoded correctly. So if you can see here, instead of being an object having the size property and a value, it's just a string that looks like JSON, but it's not actual JSON. The reason is that the type map already inferred that the type of a column is JSON. And this metadata, as pass a string, will be converted to JSON. The to JSON or JSON encode of a string is another string with a JSON encoded value inside. Okay, so I'm going to extract this because I'm going to use it very opportunistically for another stuff. So this would be JSON encode, and I'll also, by JSON encoding it, I can do some sort of validation. I'm not going to do validation here because of timing constraints, but in general, you should check that metadata is not false. If it's false, then you should throw an exception, fix the CSV file, whatever solution, or drop the file. You pick your choice. I'm not going to implement it here because it's going to take some time. Cool. So by JSON encoding it and passing it here, if I truncate table files, restart identity. Okay, and I try to load again. And I select the files. Oh, sorry about that. I encoded the encode. It's a JSON decode. Yeah. That makes more sense now. And I select. Now it is actual JSON, which is fantastic. I'll stop, truncate again. So the next challenge is, how do we load the tags? So I'm gonna allow you 2 minutes to think about the problem and throw me ideas. I already solved it in my head, but I want you to think instead of just watching me do the stuff. It took me quite a while to find this hack. So it's not like you will think of it immediately, or if you do, congratulations. So I would love to hear your take. How do we load? How do we load the tags So remember that there is the last column of a CSV file is a tag. So I want to also save the tag at the same time. But we have the limitation that we're not using the ORM, so I cannot use associations to save the tag. Subselects is one of the, yeah, it's going there. We can use subselects as actually the solution. So where do we insert the tag so we can subselect? So yeah, that's a query. One more minute. So you think about the problem. And I can solve it. Okay, so let's try again. So the last line of the file is tag, line 5, the last column, sorry. So the hack is, since we have a JSON column, why don't we store the tag in the JSON column? So metadata tag equals line 5. Okay. And here. It's loading now. And now I have the tag and the size of the file in the JSON. So this is working. So let's use the solution that I got from the channel using subselects. That is the right answer. I'm gonna let the process finish, and then the last part of the shell will be copying the tags to the right place. So I'm gonna make it load thousands, but instead of loading 1,000,000, just I'm gonna take, so it takes less time, I'm just gonna load 10,000 just to begin with. Okay. So I said before that there's nothing preventing me from saving duplicate tags. We need to solve that. So I'm gonna solve it now. You should do this with the migrations plugin, but to save time, we're just gonna do it here. Create unique index, unique tag on tags name. Okay, so that's gonna prevent me from creating duplicate tags. Cool, so now I'm gonna copy this ceremony here. I need to instantiate the tags table. Okay, so how do we insert tags out of JSON in another table? So the first step will be, of course, to, this is annoying, don't worry me. The first step will be to extract, of course, the tags. So let's use the connection again. Connection, new query. Select. So I'm gonna select the tag. Select, well, whatever. Name is gonna be the alias of the column. And just to make things a bit simpler, I'm just gonna make this a variable, query, new query, query select. Okay. Name is query, new expression. So I'm gonna write an expression that is not supported by the database system, but like out of the box, but I can write my own expression, no problem. So the expression is I want to extract the tag key in the metadata JSON. And that's actually quite simple. I'm gonna add more spaces so you can see how it works. So in the metadata column, extract the text, that's the operator. You can find all the operators in, just look for Postgres JSON operators. Extract the text in the key called tag. Okay. Okay, so from, that would be from the files table, get table. Okay, I have extracted that. That should be enough. I need to construct now files table, get table. Okay, I need to construct now an insert query that takes this select as an argument. That is another insert equals, now I can use finally the tags table. Tags table. Oh, actually, it's gonna be with connection, new query, insert. So what is the schema of tags? It has name, occurrence. I'm not gonna fill occurrence with anything useful right now. That's gonna be an exercise for you. So I only need to pass name, created, and modified. So columns are name, created, and modified. Cool. So into, not to make the same mistake as before, tags table, get table. I will probably not need the insert variable. So values, the values are simple because I just need to pass the query, which is not entirely complete because I said I was going to pass name, created and modified, and only passing name. So I need to pass more than one thing. That's easy though. Just do created is the query function now, and the same for modified. Okay, there you go. Yeah, there's a problem here. I remember why I used double tags. So in this case, the warning that red X is warning me that the cake style is not to use double quotes. But there is a reason I need double quotes, is that the correct syntax in Postgres is to quote the key. It. Cool. I think this should work. So let's try that. So I'm gonna load it to 10,000. Boom, it finished. Select star from tags. It didn't work. It's because I left out an important part, which is execute. And just for security, I close the cursor immediately. Let's try again. Load 10,000 files. Okay, that makes a lot more sense because I was waiting for occurrence to not work because I'm not passing it. So let me give it a bump. Occurrence. Since I said I'm not gonna calculate it, I'm just gonna pass expression with just the value 0. Query, new expression, the value 0 as an integer. Again, and yeah, duplicate text. So we have a problem now. I'm inserting the text that I'm selecting from the files, but the files, of course, have duplicate text. So there are books that are written by the same author, and people have the same book sometimes. So gladly, there is a nice function called epilogue, which is go crazy and append whatever you need to the end of the insert. And in PostgreSpeak, you can make an upsert or an insert that ignores duplicates by writing on conflict, do nothing. Again, with the much better. Try again. We load the files, 10,000 files, finished. I tried to get from text, and I have a bunch of text. Let me truncate it. Truncate table text restart identity. Same for files. Okay, so the final part of the challenge is to associate tags with files. So that's also another query. So basically what we need to do is insert stuff in the tagged table. Okay, so table alias, a foreign key, tag ID. Yeah, a question about the epilogue in MySQL would be, I think there is, depending on the version of MySQL, I cannot remember, there is insert ignore. So instead of doing epilogue, you do modifier. So you do ignore. Cannot remember about MySQL now, if that's still valid. But yeah, I think that might be that. I don't remember MySQL, but yeah, I think you can use you can do that. And the other, okay, you can count occurrences. Yeah, you can do that in Postgres too. So on conflict, name of the conflict, which we name update. Can't remember. I think it's set occurrence equals new occurrence +1, something like that. Actually, it's so fun that let me try it. Thank you for the suggestion. Let me see if that's valid because I cannot remember. I'm gonna Google it quite quickly. I don't think I'm sharing Safari, but bear with me. So it's on conflicts do update. On conflict name do update. Set. And I think this is to update. Just looking for the example. Oh yeah, it's not new but excluded. That looks fun. Thank you for the suggestion. So cardinality violation on conflict do update command cannot affect row a second time. All right, I'm not going to play with this. I know there is a way to do it, which cannot remember. So since I didn't try it, I don't want to waste the few minutes that we have left. But yeah, it is possible to count the occurrences that way. Okay. So finally, we need a way to query. I need another query. I can do this like this here. So I query from the files, and I have the tag ID is the expression text.id, and I need the table alias. Table alias is expression files. The foreign key comes from this same table as actually, I'm not sure if new expression is the right way. I think it's identifier. Yeah, that should be better. Tag ID. Foreign key is identifier files.id. And created a modified okay, from, I'm gonna give this an alias so I can reference it as files up here. So files is the alias, files table, get table is the actual table. And then I can join, inner join with, with missing a comment in a line. Thank you. I can inner join with tags on tags table, get table on, so that would be query, new expression, so equals. So I need to equal from the files table. I need in the metadata, the tag that I had stored in the JSON, and I need to match it to the name in the tags table. So that would be query identifier files, tags dot name should be equals to query new expression metadata, extract the text, the tag. Okay. So I have this query. So I'm joining files and tags, joining on the metadata tag. So I can insert that. I'm gonna now load the tag table. Tagged table. To insert there. So connection, new query, insert. So the tagged has ID, table alias. So table tag ID, table alias, foreign key, created and modified. Let me add some space here. Okay, so again into the tag table, get table. I'm not sure when my editor does that, but loves to do it. Into, and then the values would be just a query that I just did. I think that should be enough. So execute, and close cursor. All right. Let's try it now. Okay, select star from tagged. There you go. Now I have the correct association of files and tasks. Just for the fun of it, let's take a short break while we insert in chunks of 10,000. I'm gonna truncate files, start identity, same for tags, and the same for tagged. Perfect. So load the files. Line 178. I made a mistake at some point. What line is that? 83. Here. Seven number of parameters must be between 0 and, oh, okay, I see. Like the, let's start with 5,000. Like Postgres is complaining that too many arguments for an insert. That works. Okay, so let's take a 5 minutes break so we can stretch the legs, and I'll go to the last part of the workshop, which is querying the data that we just have. We don't have much time left. Amanda, remind me at what time I finish. I'm not sure if it's in 20 minutes or
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you haven't. You have about 30 more minutes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So let's have a 5 minutes break, so I can rest a bit.
Well, while he is taking a break, we have a giveaway. We have these really cool CakePHP bags to carry. Most computers inside a case will fit in these. So we decided to do this giveaway. We'll make it really easy. We won't even have to do trivia right now. We're going to do a vote. We want you to go in the Cakefest Slack channel and vote for your favorite CakePHP plugin. If you agree with somebody else, you can just hit the like button, and anyone who votes will be entered, and we will do a random drawing for all of those who vote for a plugin to win this. And then we'll contact you, get your information, and we'll send it out to you. So go in that Cakefest Slack channel and vote for your favorite plugin.
Okay, so we're ready to come back. Please let me know in the channel that you're alive and well. You have survived so many crazy lines of using the ORM, and I hope you have learned something interesting. This is a bit of a departure of my regular ORM talk at Cakefest, with more examples of how to use the ORM itself. You can see the previous videos, the Cakefest Japan and previous Cakefest that we have in the CakePHP YouTube channel. So if you would like to learn more about how to use the Cakes ORM, then you can check those out. Decided to do this workshop on something more low level because it's one of the parts that doesn't get a lot of attention in Cake. So waiting for you. As soon as I get a message on the channel that we're good to go, someone, I'll continue. Several people are typing. I take that as let's go. Awesome. There is one last thing which I did not implement. I just copied from, I'll copy it from a branch. I have a private branch where I implemented all this. The final step is to remove, I already loaded the 2 million files. Thank you, Edward. He's saying that he's been using connection prepared and execute with raw strings, and this being more high level, like it's easier to construct the queries, but still lower level that you get all the performance. This is also useful for me. I used this at the previous company extensively for this very specific type of tasks, loading marketing data, exporting financial forecasts, and so on. So actually the Cake ORM in its current version comes from that idea that I needed to solve those problems in an efficient way. Cool. So one of the problems that we have, I'm not going to implement it because it's not that interesting, and I have shown enough of this. So was that in files, so let's start from files, is that I left the tag in the metadata. It's not the end of the world. If you want to clean that up, then you can use, and I'll commit that part when we finish. I have it in a private branch, but it looks like a new query update. So we would update, we would update the files table so that it can delete that. One thing that I don't have in my private branch though, but I think it's quite interesting to show, is that I've always been bothered since I started working on the ORM of this kind of stuff. And I've always for ages been waiting for PHP to make this better somehow. And it's not the way I want it to be, but I think we can do better. So I'm just gonna hack something extremely quick just to give you an idea of what's possible. And for example, this, what is the new expression metadata? That being strings annoys me to no end. Like I don't like magic strings, like snippets of SQL. So one thing that we could do is we can create a function called, let's call it JSON extract. And it takes the column as a string and the path, or well, just a key. So this will return a function which takes the I think this takes the query or its expression, cannot remember. Let's just experiment with it and use column and key, and we return expression. That would be, how is it like? I think it's at expression identifier. So we pass the column through the identifier, so it is safer, and the key. So the operator, and then finally the key, which is just key. Return. I think we can return this. Okay. Should be on the same line of the declaration. Yes, of course it should be, because why not? Where else here? In double quotes. Don't annoy me. Okay. So now that I can use, that I have JSON extract, I'll try my best. So I'm gonna add here, instead of chunk, let's take 5 because it finished quickly. So instead of using new expression, I'm gonna call JSON extract from metadata the tag, which is a lot more readable for me. I'm not sure about you. I think that looks a lot better. And I'm not sure it's going to work because I haven't tried it. Closure could not be converted to string. That's annoying. It's because it depends on where we do it, I think. It's annoying. So one thing that I could do is making it like this, which is not as awesome. So instead of having it be expression, I do query new expression. There you go. Let's see if that works somehow. Query expression identifier is not here. That's odd. Is it a query expression identifier, not a function? EXP. Too bad. Let me see if just the column is enough. Okay, almost there, which is tie width, if I remember correctly. So tie with spaces. So instead of tie with and, it's tie with spaces. Sorry for the winging it here. I just wanted to see if it was possible. Cannot remember what the function name is. Sorry about that. The case is, I want someone, and I say this in every single Cakefest. I think that some person will listen to me at some point. I want someone to create a library of custom expressions that are just functions, so that instead of writing query new expression all the time, query identifier, query func now, which is extremely annoying, you can just write something like this. I know it's possible. I don't have the time now to do that, and I want someone with the motivation to do it. So that's my pitch for today. Thank you. I'll undo this, but if you are piqued by the idea, just contact me and I can guide you on how that can be done. Okay, so the last few minutes are for doing a bit of querying in the model. So the first thing that we'll do is let's create a query that finds files tagged by a specific tag. Okay, so in the table, we go to the files table and we'll create a new association belongs to many tags, and we add the details, which is through is one of the most important, would be tagged. So through the tagged class, we join tags. The foreign key will be, oddly enough, foreign key. The association foreign key, if I'm not mistaken, it's just going to be tag ID. And conditions is that the, what was the name of the tagged table alias? The condition was that tagged dot table alias is false. Okay, let me know if you understand what I'm doing. This should be generated by Bake. Only the conditions are special here. This schema is just a bit special, so we can show that you can add custom conditions to associations. My personal suggestion is not to create tables like this one, where you do polymorphic number of the model and the foreign key. They tend to be super complicated when, whereas having specific tables for the tags of each entity is, in my experience, a lot more manageable. But this is a good example for conditions. Okay, so I have done this, and let's create a finder. So in Cake, you can create custom finders, which is one of the most cool features of the ORM. So if you create a function called public find tagged with, it takes a query as first argument and an array as a second argument with options. And you always need to return the same query that you started with. For public function. Okay, so what it will allow us to do is to do something like false table find tagged with, and you can pass in the options a tag name. Tag is I don't know, tag 1. So that would be the usage of this function pretty much. Okay, so the way you do that is by doing query. So let's start with the simple option, which is not correct. So I want to contain tags, and the tags need to be filtered by function query queue. This is a different query. Well, it may be a different query. You don't know. But you always need to return it as well. And this query here allows me to filter the tags. So where tags dot name is the tag. So I don't have a tag yet, so tag will be getting it from the options. Options tag. I'm not sure if someone is writing to me. No. Here I need to use tag. Okay. It's options. Thank you. Okay, so I have this extremely simple version, which is contain the tags and filter by tag name. Let's see how that goes. I'm gonna load here the Cake console. This is a quick way to play with this. I'm gonna get the locator, which is new Cake ORM locator, table locator. So the files table is locator get files. Okay, now I have a files table that I can use. Let's try to files find. As I told you, you pass it as a string tagged with the tag. Let's see what the tag name is here. Select star from tags, or just limit 1. So random guy here that I don't know. Sorry, lost that. So files find tagged with okay, I'm gonna, because I know what's gonna happen, or maybe not. Well, no, I know what's gonna happen. So I'm just gonna limit to 10. Now I have 10 of those, but there's something odd. Oh yeah, this is just a query. So let me just do all. The files table is not here. I'm not sure if this is a problem, but I'm just guessing right now. Join table tagged. Locator. Cannot describe something that is an empty string, which is annoying. Okay, I'll need some help here. Not sure what's going on. Not sure if have something incorrect somewhere. This has the right table. This has the right table. Join table tagged. Belongs to many. Use for tagged. Probably not. I'm going to remove the through just in case. Let me try again. Locator. That looks a bit better. I have no empty string here in the associations. Not sure how that happened, to be honest. Okay, this works. I have 10 of those. I don't know how to read this. It's a lot of data. So my suggestion is to use the function print JSON. In the console, it will print the JSON and then print the result of print JSON, which is the same objects. So we'll do double printing. So this is the hack. Just add a comment at the end. So I have the JSON now. The first 10. I find it extremely weird that tags are empty, and I'm pretty sure all those files don't, like, it's odd that those files will all have the same tag. So only the first one has the first tag, the rest one have no tags. What is the problem? The problem is that contain is not the right thing. Contain does, in the case of belongs to many, it will let the files to be searched. And then for each of the files, it will extract the IDs and create another select saying, get me all the tags where the tag ID is in this list and the tag name is the tag that we passed. So for some files that would return something, for others it won't, but we're not accomplishing the goal of filtering by the tags. The solution is simple. Often it's just changing contain to matching. Matching allows this shorthand. Okay, so let's try again. So locator, files, and try this. And now it seems like it works. At least it has one super high ID and another one. The one and another one. So we asked for 10, it only returned 2, which is the right answer. Of course, you could argue that having this in the JSON is annoying because we already know what the tag is going to be. We just pass it, so we don't actually need the tag data here. So alternative to matching is a similar function that is exactly the same as matching, but with the difference that it doesn't select any fields. And it's called inner join with. So let's go through this. Oops. Let's go through the ceremony here. Sorry. Okay, console. So that looks a lot better. We have the data and we filtered out the right data, but now we didn't select the fields for the tags. If you're curious to know how that looks like in SQL, there is this extremely handy function called SQL. It's in debug kit, so you need the debug kit plugin present. So you can do use debug kit debug SQL. And now I can do, instead of print JSON, I can do debug SQL. Sorry, debug kit. That's annoying. So let's try again. Locator. And now I can do this. Whoops, I need the debug. How did we get to that? Debug kit. Must be an instance of database query. That's very true. I just passed this, and now it looks like I wanted to. So it's basically just an inner join on tagged, and then an inner join on tags. And that's why you can filter, because of the use of inner joins. If you're clever, or at least acquainted to SQL, you know that inner joins tend to duplicate the data. Because if you have duplicate of something, for example, you have twice a match with a single tag, then you will see the same file twice in the result. So a solution to that is to add a distinct on files.id. So let me use this, and if I try now it says select distinct on files ID. This is one of the reasons I wanted to use Postgres today, is because distinct on is correctly implemented in Postgres, is kind of a bit of a pain in modern MySQL. That should be an open ticket, I guess, for implementing that for MySQL. Otherwise, you have to use a group by and pass all the fields yourself. So we can try to execute that. It's going to be the same because the data is so random that there are no duplicates. But at least you see that it just works. So someone is wondering if an inner join or a subquery is faster. As Mark says, it depends. In older versions of MySQL, definitely an inner join. So in MySQL 5.7, might depend. In newer versions of MySQL, it still depends. It's almost the same every time, but inner joins have this ability that they're like an optimization. It's easier to optimize for a SQL engine because they can see all the variables. So they usually create better plans than subselects. But in the majority of the cases, in a modern database engine, like a modern Postgres and a modern MySQL, it's usually the same. It's better to just, sorry, it's better to just test, as Mark's story says. All right, so I think I'm done. I would have liked to cover more material, but I think that I'm already at the limit of my time. Correct me if I'm wrong, Amanda?
Nope, you've ran it up.
Okay, so thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'll be in the Cakefest channel answering this. I'll upload what I have here to a branch in the repo. It's gonna be called feature/ORM stuff. I don't know. The new branch that you see in the repo is gonna be that. So thank you so much for joining. Let me know if you have any questions. And thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we are still running the giveaway. If you're just entering or you missed it, we are giving away one of our CakePHP bags. These are a super hot commodity. So if you want to enter, go over to the Cakefest Slack chat and vote for your favorite plugin. If you want to just like somebody else's, we're still counting that as an entry. If you want to tell us more, tell us your favorite features, why you like to use it, and our team will be picking winners and contacting you, and we will announce the winners after this break. So we will take a short break right now, but go ahead and get everything done, because after this, we're going to kind of roll through the next 2 workshops without a quick break. So use your time wisely, and we will be back pretty soon.